A charming science fiction comedy set in a beautiful and rustic North American town, Resonant Alien tells the story of an alien stranded on Earth, forced to blend into the small town of Patience, Colorado. It stars Alan Tudyk in a masterclass performance that balances flawless comedy and a deep-set pathos, and manages to touch on something incredibly emotionally resonant. Originally a comic book series created by Peter Hogan and Steve Parkhouse, the TV series was adapted by Family Guy veteran writer Chris Sheridan, and follows Tudyk's titular alien as he lives in the guise of Dr. Harry Vanderspiegel, an identity he stole after killing the real Harry following crash landing on Earth. When the town doctor is murdered, Harry is forced to interact with the local residents and, naturally, starts to discover what it means to be human. Resonant Alien came along at basically the perfect time. In a year when the world found itself forced to stay apart, the series proved itself as ideal escapism, full of sharp and delightful humour, breathtakingly gorgeous scenery, and a comforting emotional core about what it means to feel connected to others. It's a show all about the strength, the power, and the importance of connection, whether that's to community, culture, or simply to each other or the world around you, all told through the lens of this strange and wonderful alien.
I was taught that the biggest problem with the human race was their need for connection. We always saw that as a weakness. But now I realize it may be their greatest strength.
There will be spoilers ahead for the first season of Resident Alien. This is a spoiler warning.
Come.
One notable thing that makes Resident Alien stand out is in its depiction and representation of Native American people and culture, in a way that ties together the entirety of the series' themes and ideas. The town of Patience is located close by to the Ute Reservation in Colorado, and the series' deuteragonist is Asta 12trees, an assistant at the town doctor's office. Played by Sarah Tomko, Asta and her heritage are absolutely integral to the story's philosophy. The character of Asta would mean a lot more to Tomko than just the chance to play a sci-fi hero, as she told CBR on the subject. My favourite thing about Asta is she's a mix, and so am I. It's the first time I've gotten a chance to play a role where I can really truly be all that I am. I have native heritage, but I'm not a citizen. So I think it's really important, especially now in this day and age with all the conversations we have about ethnicity, to be upfront and forward about who you really are. Tomko and Asta's shared dual identity makes for an obvious parallel to Harry's own attempts to be both human and alien, to try to blend in while still feeling to some degree like an outsider. And it's through this that the show forges the connection between Harry and Asta that the story hinges on. When portraying Asta, Tomko said that she wanted to be honest about who I am, and that I am a mix and that I can't check just one box, and neither can Asta. And that's what makes us feel like an outsider. When I go and vote, I check the other box. I don't know where I fit in, but I feel like there are a lot of people who feel that way.
My mom left when I was 1. Dan took me in and he raised me. He gave me everything. I never really felt like I fit in.
As a result, she's the first to really accept and understand Harry, even without knowing the full truth of who he is, and absolutely key as a result to Harry's increasing connection to the world he's been stranded on. Feeling like you don't belong, like you're only blending in as one thing or another, is something she can empathise with. As put by CBR's Anthony Grimuglia, this sense of alienation again perfectly embodies the spirit of a series about an alien living on Earth. The underrepresentation of biracial folks, especially when these different races carry with them such an intense sense of identity, is vital. Even when they are welcomed into the culture, there is still that sense of being an outsider. Harry is not meant to be an explicit metaphor for anyone's biracial experience, but by framing their relationship over something they can share and feel connected over, the series makes their bond feel appropriately deep and informative for both characters. Harry can often be himself around her, speak his mind in a way that his not so carefully constructed persona wouldn't.
I miss home.
And her raw humanity as someone who feels so much so visibly shows him what it's like to feel in turn. In response, Harry's bluntness is almost refreshing to Asta, and his lack of personal judgment or preconceptions makes him someone she doesn't have to hide herself around either.
I think I'm better having known you.
You're weird too.
As Tomko told CBR, I think him being so brutally honest is really good for me because she doesn't really have a lot of trust in men when we first meet her, because of her abusive ex-husband and feelings of abandonment and grief.
Why? I don't care.
Nobody cares. That's not the point.
And as we learned, one of the hardest moments in Asta's life, finally leaving her abusive husband, occurred while Harry was crash landing, and the bright light in the sky she saw as a result helped her have the strength to leave. A moment which is followed up by Asta then encountering a lone stag in the snow that makes her feel protected, able to move forwards.
Some people believe the buck symbolizes protection and rebirth.
Protection from what?
Everything.
This plays into another important aspect of the series' native representation, most specifically regarding Asta's spirituality.
My dad says that the stars in the Big Dipper are 7 brothers shot into the sky like arrows.
This side of the character is a refreshing take on non-stereotypical representation, with the show never pausing to over-explain the significance of these moments, and letting the emotions of the scene speak for themselves. Moments where Asta feels a keen and obvious connection to the world around her, to nature itself, or where she engages in traditional practices like cutting her hair and burning her clothes in mourning. This side of Asta is shown explicitly in the pilot, where she asks Harry to drive her out of town after a violent confrontation with her ex-husband, so she can walk in the snow and take in the mountain view. The show lets the visuals speak for itself, as Asta grounds herself in the peaceful setting, and shares this vulnerable and spiritual moment with Harry. It's the way in which Asta seeks to, according to Tomko, find her centre when she feels out of balance. Being barefoot in the snow shows how rooted to the earth Asta is, and sometimes she needs to be reminded literally by planting her feet firmly on the ground, closing her eyes and breathing deep. By letting Harry be a part of this moment and sharing parts of herself with him, even though they barely know each other, makes it Harry's first step towards understanding this level of deeper connection, and the empathy and the humanity that comes along with it. As well as the careful portrayal of Asta's spirituality, Resonant Alien takes similar care in its depiction of a modern Native American community. Tomko told Space.com that showrunner Chris Sheridan really made it a really important part of the show to get Native writers, artists, musicians, and actors, so that we could really fit out the Native American community with what is true to this day. Even something as simple as using Native or First Nations artists for the music makes the portrayal feel more realised.
We them bougie natives, new city, new sweet grass, new sage. We them bougie natives.
And meeting the community at the reservation in episode 4 is one of the biggest turning points in Harry's early development, and demonstrates the importance of community, of belonging, and how it can be a strength and a comfort. Sheridan told Variety, he goes to the reservation in which Asta was raised, and sees how they live with such a sense of belonging. He does approach it with wide eyes, and he realises, there's something here that these people have that is a strength that our people didn't know about. The episode even opens with Harry dreaming of a world in which he is accepted as an alien, the subconscious beginnings of him wanting to feel the connection he then sees in the reservation.
Sometimes you wanna go where
It calls back to a particular visual from the first episode, when Harry gets drunk for the first time and envisions himself as his true self, accepted. And even beyond the reservation, that sense of community is such a huge part of the show overall, and why setting it in a small country town like Patience is so integral to the overall atmosphere. The town's locals, from bartender and former ski prodigy Darcy, to Ben the young mayor and his family, or Sheriff Mike and Deputy Liv and their whole dynamic, all feel deeply realised and part of a whole. A perfect example of what a community looks like, even if not a perfect community, something that Harry has one foot in and one foot out of. According to Sheridan, the characters that make up Patience weren't developed with any specific actors in mind, so that after filming the pilot episode, the writing could be adapted to fit the personal touch each actor brought to the role. As he told CBR, I would go up to these actors and ask how they thought their characters would feel in a moment, and every one of these actors I had these conversations with as we moved their arcs along. This way of bonding the actors with their characters made each character that bit more relatable, that bit more brought to life. As one example, Tomko has spoken of how the moment with the stag was reminiscent of a real experience of her own, and that has been the common theme with working with this ensemble. Every single ensemble member has a synergetic story like that ties into how Chris managed to write the character, and so there's this weird, beautiful togetherness that magnetizes us to this circle. And when it comes to Harry's relationship with Max, the only one in town who sees Harry as he really is, it starts antagonistic but eventually plays off previous scenes showing Harry's below-the-surface desire to be accepted in his alien form. Max can see the real alien behind Alan Tudyk, and while that's something that scares Harry at first, it's sort of his most honest relationship. Max becomes one less person he has to hide around, at least to a degree, and it lets Harry take down that extra wall, opening himself up to his burgeoning humanity by that extra little bit. Appropriately enough considering the town's name, the people of Patience show a surprising amount of it when interacting with Harry. He's as weird as an alien played by Alan Tudyk can be, all the while thinking he's doing a wonderful job of acting the part. But there's a compassion on show from the townsfolk, who may find Harry's behaviour unusual or off-putting.
I told a joke earlier too. The sheriff's balls are also his nuts.
But, as Asta puts in the pilot,
You're just different.
while once again, Harry is not meant to be a one-to-one of anyone's experience, they often treat him like they might treat a person on the spectrum. It can be a potentially problematic trope on its own to directly state this type of correlation, especially when the actual alien in question is secretly plotting the extermination of humanity. But it can also be a commonly used descriptor for said experience, as encapsulated by Carly Slomka of online health community The Mighty. Imagine you are a member of a lost race whose spaceship somehow managed to crash land on a foreign planet. You find a strange, unseen beauty in your surroundings, but are taken by surprise by the people you encounter. They look just like your people, only they act differently. Their language is the same as yours, but they speak it in a way that is nearly incoherent to you. They expect you to understand, cherish and honour their customs and traditions, but you simply do not understand the purpose. So watching the people of Patience treat someone like Harry, someone who has to consciously think about how to behave around others, with understanding and accommodation goes that extra distance to making the town feel more connected as a place and with its people, adding to that overall atmosphere that Harry becomes a part of. Another important angle to Patience's place in the story's themes is the town motto.
The 59! Died to save one. Town motto. Maybe stick around long enough you'll find out what it means.
It comes from a moment in the town's history when a mine collapsed in 1884 and the 59 escaped miners went back to save the one still trapped miner. At first, to someone like Harry, the idea may sound illogical, but it demonstrates the kind of strength that humanity can hold through its bonds with one another, especially based on how Harry initially sees humans, as put by Tudyk in an interview with EW. When I started the job, showrunner Chris Sheridan said that I should look at humans the way you might look at pantry moths. You don't consider at all killing them. There are some bugs you don't want to kill, like if there was a butterfly in your house you'd be like, oh, let's free it, but a pantry moth is just, kill it. So what if you were to then see 59 pantry moths sacrificing themselves to try and save one? What does that say about them, about the bonds between them, and by extension about their capacity for being something more than what you thought? By being stranded in a place like Patience that bases its identity around that story, it makes it even more of a perfect setting for Harry to understand this utterly, at least to him, alien concept. There's a lot to enjoy about Resident Alien, especially since in a comedy full of silly moments, it has a depth of heart. Tudyk proves himself a master of physical acting for such a strange and interesting character, and still manages to create a surprisingly relatable one, at least for a lot of people. Hopefully not on the kill all human side of things, but Harry's someone not quite comfortable in his own body, who doesn't quite know how to behave around others, and doesn't know which box to tick. And as Harry grows and learns, as you would expect from a show about an alien attempting to blend in as a human, Resident Alien creates a clear thesis on what it is that makes humanity worth something. It doesn't come from a moral or ethical standpoint. It's not about teaching Harry what the right thing to do is, or even necessarily about just feeling what that right thing is. Those abilities to think and feel aren't key to humanity on its own. According to Resident Alien, it's through making a link, by sharing experiences and emotions and, by extension, becoming something more. Through the bond he makes with Asta, a simple but powerful friendship, Harry becomes more than he was. He feels things through her he's never encountered before and becomes more connected to the world around him as a result, which is something that ties in beautifully to the way Resident Alien treats Asta's own heritage and spirituality. And it's refreshing to see a story where it's not a romantic love that is the key to redemption or finding humanity, but rather a platonic or communal one. As Sheridan told Variety, it is important in this show to celebrate what we have in common. It's not just about being an alien, but learning, when you're human, how to care for another person. I want to show that humans are stronger when they work together. I want to show that just because somebody's different doesn't mean they're bad, and we should celebrate people's differences. And even people you think aren't worth saving are worth saving, because we're all part of the same thing, and we're all connected, and there's love in all of us. Thanks for watching. What did you think of the first season of Resident Alien? What social situation would you love to see Harry blunder his way through in the future? Comment down below what you think, and please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons if you want to keep up to date with what I'm talking about next. Thanks again, and see you later.